Hey guys, my name is Wonder JR, and I have the amazing Laura over here. You're watching Bridging the Gap, and please don't hesitate to like, share, subscribe, and the whole thing if you like what you watch, because we're about to get into a very, very interesting conversation about addiction
Yep.
and whatever comes with that.
Yes.
So please, let's get into it. So, Laura, here we are. Home of what?
Home of Tuza.
What does home of Tuza mean again? What's a Tuza?
Tuza means calmness, serenity, peace, which is this whole path that I'm on right now.
That's why you had to pluck it on. That you had to put it on literally by the doorstep.
Yes, but this is it. This is the home of Tuza.
So whoever gets in contact with this has to
Yeah.
feel peaceful and
Yes.
tranquil.
Yes. Don't you feel that?
I feel that.
You do?
Even the aura is different.
Yeah, it's very different here. It's different.
Hence the the vibration. I'm very strong on energy and frequency. And all
I've
these
been
things.
seeing frequency, vibration,
You know
what
what I mean?
all
You have
those
to
other
put in
big words.
put guys on a bus there real quick.
Yeah.
But I'm very humble to be here. I have had a chat with you few times, one or two times.
Yeah.
I've watched your content, and I'm very intrigued at how you've managed to get to this point.
Which point is this? The Tuza point.
You know what I mean?
Good. I wanted to make sure that we're on the same page.
Here.
Yeah.
Especially for me, to be honest, seeing you and hearing what you went through is like east and west.
Yeah.
Because when someone sees you, they be like, babe,
Like
oh no,
how?
Gamba no go. They have it all
Please.
figured out. Which indeed you are, no? You
No.
can't walk away from it.
No.
You're Gamba no go now.
No.
No?
No.
Me, I'd like to believe that. You know what a Gamba no go is? Someone who has been properly brought up, planned. You've been a planned kid.
I'm definitely a planned kid.
That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
You're a planned kid.
Okay, fine.
In the community, they will say Gamba no.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I'm a planned kid. I have a planned business. I have a planned. Okay, good.
You're established.
Yes.
And you've always been established. Everything was sort of like,
Yes.
you were brought up through the right channels.
Yeah.
I've had the privilege of meeting your pops, your dad, when at the meeting, the restaurant, and it seems like you've had a very strong support system as well.
Extremely strong. I can't imagine a stronger one. Yeah.
And so, I'd like you to walk me through your upbringing, just briefly.
Yeah.
What was missing for you to actually indulge in the addiction that had nearly taken you? Because it seems to me that everything was on a plate, really. Silver
I
platter.
know, of course, that's what it looks like. What was missing? Wow, I didn't expect you to ask it like that. Because really nothing was missing. I grew up in a very, like your typical home. I'm the firstborn of four. I have very doting parents, very involved. Went to only one primary school, even secondary. Like I didn't even bounce, from different schools.
No suspensions, no expulsions, nothing.
like that.
You're a good girl.
I don't know about good girl, but at least it didn't reach that extreme
the
point.
extremes,
I went to SA and did uni and finished. But when you ask that, when you ask what was missing, I think that is why we need to keep doing having more of these conversations, because people always feel like something had to have been missing, or something major. Like people want to hear about some major traumatic situation, Despite everything that I've said about my upbringing and how joyful and everything that it says, I was just your typical kid. But I was just always this anxious kid. I was very, always very self-conscious. Always, at whatever stage of my life, I always felt like my legs were too big. in Budo. Terrible guys. They used to tease me and say like,
Your flex is major. You're in Budo as well.
I was in Namagunga for O level and then Budo.
Come on.
And even Budo is because I was being a rebel. I wanted boys. So they used to write on the board, Laura, remember to carry your boobs tomorrow. Wow. Like small things like that, or writing on the walls. This and that, because so I was just always an anxious kid, always. And then at home, you see, bless our parents, all parents, especially back then, just did the best that they knew how, right? But we were blanket parented, like every child punished the same way, talked to the same way, and all that. So I was the firstborn, and always held responsible for everything. So I was that kid that was always punished. But then, despite being the firstborn, even now, my siblings who follow me, if you met them, they look like and act like they're older than me. Because I was just always the one that got in trouble more than them. I didn't perform as well as them. I was just always more anxious than them. Then they participated in this. For me to get on stage, wow, like several tummy aches and everything later. So it just kept getting worse. That anxiety. I was just always a ball of anxiety. It's very hard to explain. I remember, in school, imagine, I was, and when I'm talking to a couple of my friends now, they go like, what, but you were such a babe. I always felt like I was too thin and my bones were sticking out. And, there were times when boys would come to Namagunga or at all those events, right? And when even a guy would look at me, my first thought was always, he's noticing this and he's noticing that about me, and it's just all these things. So fast forward, I got to South Africa, and the time that led me when I took my first drink was I had gone out with a couple of people. I never used to go out much in the beginning, and I was so super anxious in the club because I remember I got there late and people were lit, and for me, I was just there, nervous as usual, and ordering my Fanta orange and feeling like, how do I leave? And I remember that particular time, it was quite far. It was the first time I had gone out really far from uni, and I couldn't head back. We didn't have uni then. I didn't know any cab guy. These guys who were supposed to drop me back, wow, the guy had just ordered a full bottle. So anyway, a guy passes me a drink and I just take it. And anyway, from that day, I became the life of the party.
You moved from Fanta Orange?
I moved from Fanta Orange and being that nervous, anxious kid to the one making the progi, discovering new clubs, to being the one throwing the biggest East African parties. I was the one pulling everyone together. I was the one making sure there were shots lined up for everyone. I didn't even do, like that Kasai does phase.
Yeah. Those people like the things and what, nothing.
I skipped all that.
They were 2% what?
I skipped all that to being the hardest. Yeah.
Like that?
Yeah, from
Kasai
0 to 200%.
And it all happened that night?
Yes. It all happened
Did it feel like that night?
I had never been that person
liquor
who has 2 glasses of wine.
Right.
I even didn't like wine for that reason. It's like, why do you waste money on something that's not going to get you there quickly?
So did you feel like that night, that first drink answered so many questions?
Yeah. I remember going to the bathroom after that. I looked at myself, I was like, you're such a babe.
What?
You don't understand. The wings, the confidence. I don't know. I don't think you get it.
So that night just changed your entire life?
Everything. It's like it just did something in my brain, and now I could have conversations easily. I even felt like people were looking at me differently. All of a sudden, someone's looking at me, and I'm not thinking they're looking for something ugly. No, I'm thinking like, yeah, check that guy checking me out. Do you get what I mean? Yeah, I never used to be like that. Right?
So you were always like held back, sort of reclusive and whatnot, and then this drink.
and especially
because a lot of people find the drink as a contributor to social connections.
Yes, exactly.
And it's a real thing. People connect after they drink.
Yes, a lot. Then I just started to make friends easily. Now remember, I did my whole primary school in Jinja. Then we moved to Mbara.
Right.
I was never that kid that grew up in Kampala. So even in Namagunga, in Budo, I was that person that came from Villa. I tell you, those days coming from Mbara was real Villa. It's not like now, please. There's nothing Villa about Mbara these days.
Right.
So I was always that outsider. I was always that person who felt they didn't fit in. Of course, a lot of this was just in my mind, but what matters is that's how I felt, And so even going out like that, like what I'm saying, to the club that night, I always felt like people already had their cliques and I was the outsider.
Right.
Even if someone tried to include me, it felt like, Bambi, okay, you come. Like, that's how I always looked at it, like it was done out of pity, not that they actually wanted my company. So of course then that changed after that.
After the pint,
Yeah,
you said
and you
now
know
connecting.
what?
You knew what would bind you together and get
Yeah.
you more open and more
Yeah.
direct and whatnot.
And of course I thought more liked and more everything. Yeah.
That's
and
very
that was
powerful.
that. That was the turning point. That was that. And by the way, then I think I just turned 21, or it's 20? 20. I just turned 20. So me and Ella used to hang out sometimes when I would be in Kampala just for a short time. We'd go to the club, but I was always that chick on Fanta Orange. And the way I loved that.
This was before or after?
Before, like
Okay,
before,
right.
like when I was 18, 19. A lot of my friends were already
Wouldn't you get
drinking at that
ridiculed
time.
for drinking Fanta Orange in the club? Because
Yeah,
I can
but
imagine
I didn't care.
that thing is loud. The color of that drink is just too.
Yeah.
It's like, bruh, what the heck?
Because
man?
I was always
Tell me,
that
tell these
anxious.
vibes.
I was also always scared about like, but how will I get home?
Right.
How will I this? There was always
Right.
a but this, and I
Right.
was too scared of losing control.
Not even a Coke?
No, Fanta Orange.
What in the world? How is Fanta Orange in club even now? I think they're banned in
I
clubs
remember
now.
in Silk, it would even like stand out.
That's
so
what I'm
much.
saying. It's shining. It's like, guys,
Yeah.
what's going on? So,
Yeah.
anyway, what I like about that story is that you're clearly giving us the root cause of where this came from.
Yeah.
You've mentioned feeling inadequate,
Yeah.
anxiety, because most of us obsess with the effect and we neglect the causes. I think
Yeah.
now for you, you're sort of helping us understand the cause of what made you,
Yeah.
and then eventually you feel like you've now come alive after
Yeah.
taking the first pint. Now you know what's going to make you come alive all the time was the drink,
Yeah.
and now it spirals into what you ultimately become, and
Yeah.
it becomes an answer for so many things, right?
Yeah,
You talk
because
about-
after that, I don't think I ever went for any. I just didn't not drink.
Mm.
Let me put it that way. I couldn't go for a party without drinking, any event without drinking, chill with friends without drinking.
On your own?
It became the center of everything. I remember I couldn't even date a guy who didn't drink. Then what will we do together?
Serious?
Yeah, so that's when I'm drinking, you're doing what?
Usually it's a thing. Guys are
so
like,
that-
me, I can't drink, and my guy also drinks.
I didn't.
You're not them ones.
No, in fact, sometimes I think I'd look for one way worse than me, so I don't
Really?
feel so bad, right?
Wow.
Yeah, so it really dictated a lot of things.
Everything.
It dictated everything after that. Of course, I didn't realize.
Were you
because-
mindful? Okay, that's what
Yeah,
I'm answering.
was
Were
I
you
mindful?
mindful of how potent it was in your life?
No, because when you're younger, there's nothing much to lose. You're not working. You can s- blast
The money
and
is
read
there.
1 week to exams.
What's that? The money is there.
So there's nothing to, should I say nothing to lose? I wasn't a mom yet.
Yeah.
So it was easy to breeze through, and it just at that point just looked like, but you cheek, you can blast, like where people make those comments.
Right.
But then there are other people who are also blasting just
Right,
as much,
right.
So you don't really, at that age, you don't really stand out unless you're blacking out all over the
Right.
place.
Which you were not doing, obviously.
Sometimes,
Okay.
but then
What is the
next
worst thing
day-
that alcohol ever did to you?
when I was younger that time, waking up in places I shouldn't have been waking up in, where you look around, look at yourself, you're like, who is this person next to me? How did I get here? The last thing you remember is that shot at the bar. You don't remember how you left.
That's scary.
Yeah,
Yeah.
one of the times this place was actually like an hour and a half away, and I think I had an exam the next day. So just so many things like that. It was just crazy like that. But at that time, those were things which you could even laugh about with people.
Right.
Like, bro, you won't believe what happened.
Right.
Right? It's only after you see people start to notice now when it really becomes a pattern. Because you can't keep saying, "Go, you won't believe this time I ended up in a it starts to, like, that pattern starts to form, and at this point then consequences start to come up, and people
Right.
are starting to notice. So it just gets worse and worse. But for a while you can get away with it. I'm sure you've seen that here as
Right,
well.
of course.
You
of
can
course.
get away with it.
And then family, how was family seeing you at the time? Were they starting to notice the difference in your rhythm and vibration at the time, or what?
Yeah, I just have a very, should I say, mindful, like sensitive, like they don't just jazz for. But it became, when you notice people starting to say, okay, but Laura, don't overdo it this time. Even when you're going out, or you notice some, cousins are watching you and they're just making sure you're not going over this, or questions like, do you have a ride back? or things like that. You start to notice things like that. But like I said, of course, at first it was just she's still in uni. Then now she's stressed about this. Because there's always something to be stressed about. A stressful work situation, a stressful relationship. Now that's another thing with addiction, and what people who are in active addiction don't realize. We keep creating all this crisis to justify the drinking. Do you get? So my boss is so bad, That's what you'll start to notice. Even like I can see the patterns in people, right? Like that person that keeps, even with different jobs, the boss is always really bad, everyone else, there's always something really stressful. There's always a crisis. The partner. Until, like I said, people start to notice patterns, but you're the common denominator here in all these things, in all these jobs, in all these relationships, in, everything. But for a long time, the addict will find very creative ways to justify and try as much as possible to make all these situations seem different and play the victim.
Right.
For a long time. So, yeah.
How much of a victim did you? How much of a victim did you play at that time?
Yeah. I've always been the victim. I've always been the single mom, the one in a stressful relationship. Always, and I of course, now that I'm in recovery and going through my healing journey, this Tuza journey, I'm able to see how crazy everything was. Like, it's almost like I subconsciously chose the kind of partners who were just not emotionally available, who were just going to make me feel a certain way that would justify the drinking. Do you know what I mean? Because a really calm, emotionally available, basically correct person will over make me see myself.
Right. And this is happening subconsciously.
Yes, it's happening subconsciously. That's what I'm saying, that sometimes you won't even want that calm job because then where will I find the stress to pass by every day because my boss is so bad? Because this job, they're not doing this. But then close family members start to notice that secretly, that somehow you keep turning down the better opportunities. You will always find a reason. But that's the thing with addiction. Your mind is held captive. Sometimes you don't realize this. It's not as obvious now. Like, of course, now there are a lot of situations I look back on and I'm like, really? Like now, this Laura, I cannot date a lot of the people that I dated then. I cannot enter, either certain work opportunities or do business, even the way that I used to, like there's a lot now that I wouldn't do. Like I was chasing after chaos.
And toxicity.
That's why I keep using the word Tuza. Like I keep saying I came off the chaotic highway and onto the Tuza highway,
Which is something I must commend you for, because you can feel it as well. You can feel the Tuza. So coming from that chaotic world and vis-a-vis where you are now, and looking at that time, obviously you talk about things relationally. In the video, you talk about your breakup. I mean, with the husband. You had a husband, and you break up. And what the toll it took on you, and also other relationships that subsequently happened after that. The birth of your son, who I got to meet recently. It's quite stunned by the height. How did that, add to your intake, to your
of course,
your addiction?
Now I heard an even bigger reason. Now I'm a divorcee. I mean, it's stressful. Oh my God. But anyway, that was me being sarcastic. But even then, even the way I got into that situation, even the way we used to throw. He was the DJ, but also
as a legit DJ, or just like DJ at the parties.
DJ at the parties, but of course, he had an IT job, like he had a job, a day job.
Right.
He used to go out of town a lot. And I remember when he would go out of town, it would always be, a network issue and whatnot. Of course, later I found out other things, but as in now, it would be so obvious. But remember what I said about the people I kept going, and just so many other things. But we literally met at a party, and I remember even then, it was literally alcohol or the lifestyle that drove that decision, because for me it meant I get to live in a party all my life. Do you get? Like,
did you know it like that, or subconsciously?
I used to look at most relationships like, my God, that is so boring. Like, I would not have the freedom to do what I want to do. With him, it just seemed like nothing would have to change. I would continue like this. So for me, it was like the best of both worlds. I can still like this remain, with this lifestyle, and yet still be married. And remember, like, for a girl that age, first of all, I was only 25. Like, sometimes I look back and I'm like, what the hell was I doing? But at that age, I wanted to tick that box, because at that point I was working. I was, like I said, I'm the firstborn. I'm what? So I just wanted to feel like, at least I've done that. Like I'm normal.
So he was access to that. Felt like you could tap into your wild side, but at the same time
be a good daughter, be the good, just.
And that didn't end well, obviously.
Absolutely not. I keep saying that I pulled a Britney Spears. I didn't even just get divorced. Like, it was practically an annulment. Guys, do you know what that is? That's when you get divorced within less than 6 months. Yeah.
First
and
less than 6 months, you got divorced.
Yeah. I won't go into the details.
What's that called? An annulment?
Why. Yes.
I didn't even know what that meant.
Yeah. It's celebrity things.
Interesting.
But and at that point, truly, I actually didn't know any other divorced person in my world. As in my world, I don't mean in the movies.
Right.
And stuff like that.
Right.
And others also didn't know. And Minala had a beautiful destination wedding. So the joke, there's a running joke of we were even still paying off our debts. When I say destination wedding, as in the family flew to South Africa.
Wow.
Actually, that was the first destination wedding most people in my world attended. There've been several others after that.
Yeah.
But that was just a series. That was just one of the many bad decisions that I made.
So,
I
but
shouldn't have
that one
gotten
took
married at that that point. I wasn't
you
ready
feel like
to
you're
get
too young.
married. Oh my God, I was too young. I had my priorities absolutely upside down.
But we're told 25 parents put girls on pressure at that age.
Not me. Yes, there's some 25-year-olds who are ready, but I really wasn't. Of course, now I know that I was really in the throes of addiction. I was making terrible decisions. Yeah.
But at the time, you thought you were.
At that point,
was there some family pressure?
No. I even keep saying, like, even as I was walking down the aisle with my dad, he was saying, we can stop even now.
Really? Your pop say that to you?
Properly, like, we can stop even now, even today. Yeah.
Did you feel like you were not ready?
My mom was not even looking at me. Like, she was not happy at all. I don't even think we hugged on that day.
Why, she didn't like the guy?
She didn't like the fact that I was getting married, to him, but then also I was young. They could tell I wasn't ready. Of course, for me, it's just, you don't like the guy because he's not Ugandan, and maybe because he's not well-to-do, or he's not what,
Right.
But yeah, they were not happy, but they also knew that I was very stubborn. I think they actually feared that if they had stopped it, like outrightly refused,
they're probably gone.
Yeah.
Yeah, like in the movies.
Yeah, I would have found a way to do what I wanted to do.
Right.
And justified it 100%. I was very good at justifying everything. Yeah.
So that takes a toll on you, the breakup, the divorce.
Yeah, it does, because now a lot of these bad decisions had started to take a toll on me. At this point, real shame had come in, because now this,
which is a whole different
for a
thing.
long time, I could get away with a lot because I lived all the way in South Africa. That's very different from family. And this time, this now involved the whole family. I became so ashamed of the fact that people were, back home talking about me as a divorcee. Imagine at that age. And I felt so terrible. I felt like I'd really embarrassed my parents. So of course, what did I do? I drank even more and justified it, because now I'm stressed, now I'm sad, now I'm, all that. So it's just a series of bad decisions.
And the birth of your son as well.
Yeah, then the birth of my son,
yeah.
my amazing son. And even that, when it comes to Shema, because now he's 12, but Shema is like 12 going on 18. It's hard to explain, but you've seen him. Kids of that age are now on social. So some of the things that pertain to Shema, I leave out because that's his story to tell one day, right? But I still made a lot of terrible decisions around that. Of course, I don't regret the birth of my son. He's the best thing that's happened to me, but it could have happened in a different way. I'm still living with, unfortunately, he is also living with some of the consequences of of that. You know, I've had to, things around Shema are very hard for me, because anything that's to do with me, I can forgive myself,
Right.
I can work on. But when it affects someone else, right? When my decisions become someone else's story, in this case his, that guilt is so heavy. It is so hard. I don't think I have yet. I'm still working through that, forgiving myself there. So it's been quite
A journey.
it's been quite a journey, and it still is very, very hard. And I think that's why I was very passionate about talking about this openly, because it just kept feeling like if maybe I had come across someone like me speaking out about stuff like this, I think I would have recognized some of those things in myself, and really questioned some of the things that I was doing, and maybe being able to stop sooner. So a lot of what I do is, you don't have to get to this age. I'm 41 years old. Having made this many mistakes, like, your journey can be shorter.
And there's many people who can be affected by the
Yes,
mistakes that we make.
some of the consequences of our actions are last forever.
Impact, yeah.
The impact, it lasts forever, and there's nothing you can do about it except live with it. So that's what I'm very passionate about.
You know, we're very individualistic people.
Yeah.
And me, it's just me. These are my problems. These
Yeah.
are my. But you figure out the longer you go that it's not just you.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
There's so many
You know?
people that are around you, that depend on you, that love you.
Yes.
And I think that's the thing about, an addiction, or addiction, really. It's a selfish.
Yes, it is. And, it's a family disease.
Right.
Right? Even in rehab, in counseling, it really is a family disease, because it really affects the family so much. And what's even worse, you see, for us, we go for, like, I went to rehab. I still have counseling sessions. I'm doing all this, but I went in, the family didn't. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
After all these years of me traumatizing them like this, I left them outside. It's only when I came out and I started making sure that they were getting therapy as well, and going for group therapy with them. But you can imagine how many families don't get to do that. So for you, you get all this help. I mean, the addict gets all this help, and now, but the family is still where they were. For them, they're still as traumatized, as
broken.
broken,
Yeah.
especially moms, But yeah.
And as obviously, as a firstborn, you got siblings that look up to you.
Yes.
As well. So you have influence, and you don't even know this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because even me as a big brother to a brother of mine, I quickly started to learn how he looked up to me.
Yeah.
Some of his mannerisms and all these things. But this happened to me when I grew up, that I understood that. So
Yeah.
as a firstborn, obviously I'm not the firstborn in my family. I can imagine what that was like for you.
Yeah.
In your dynamic as a big sister. So, fast forward, this happens. All this is quite heavy. Well, you notice we even shifted from my perception
Yeah.
of who I see, and I'm now starting to see how painful that journey can be
Yeah.
for you, or how it was for you. And fast forward, you feel the need to take yourself in. Nkomwish,
Yeah.
as a girl,
Yeah.
something that is quite
Into a rehab.
unheard of. How does a girl take
Yeah.
herself to a rehab center?
Yeah.
You mentioned how you look like you had no problems. I think guys in there were shook. Walk us through how you managed to feel the need to go into rehab.
The night before I went in, I called my close friends and told them, and the general reaction was, "Are you exaggerating? Like, you first, at least, take a holiday, do this. You're being too hard on yourself. Okay, let's first go for therapy."
First, before you get to that point, how do you get there?
How did I get there?
To feel the
my
need to go to
God.
rehab.
Yeah, it just, at that point, I have always treasured my mind so much. I mean, like, it reached a point where, for me, my body was just carrying my head, my mind. The mind that was doing business, that was holding Travelnazar together, that was, you know what I mean? Like, I kept saying, as long as I can keep going, as long as I'm creative, as long as I'm this and that. So, and that's how I even completely neglected my body. Like, I keep saying, when I reached that stage, I was the heaviest I'd ever been. But what made me realize that I really, okay, of course, many things, but the last, one of the last things that happened was, I just started to lose my mind slowly. I started to have these long blackouts, you know. Yeah, there's blacking out from drinking, but then there's where I'd look at the previous day, and maybe the last thing I remember was like at 1 p.m. Meanwhile, I've had several meetings. I've had, you know what I mean? Like where the blackout started to happen after one drink. I feel like even just in the middle of that drink. So in one of the episodes that I've done, I've taken people through what we call the Jelenic curve. And we did that in such detail so you can see where you are on that curve, right? Now, I had reached in that curve, there's a point where your tolerance becomes, where even just a little bit just wipes you out. You get. So I had reached that point. I could tell that, you know, the blackouts were much longer. Then I had become really forgetful. I kept talking about how the day that I made that decision to go into rehab, I was not wearing earrings. I have never, ever, ever not worn earrings. I looked at myself in the mirror and I was not wearing earrings. I used to forget my phone. You know, like I'd become really forgetful. I basically started to notice that my mind was completely altering, like it was changing. I was always a ball of anxiety. Like I would get a call, let's say their client's stuck at some airport, you know, and for me it would become such a crisis. I would call someone on the team and then, you know, we would solve it. And then I'd start to notice that they would call back and say, but are you sure that was it? Like, because for them, it shouldn't have warranted that reaction. But I didn't notice that, you know. Of course, I started to notice. I started to notice that because people started saying, you know, are you okay? So basically my anxiety levels had reached, you know. Sleep, it was getting so much harder for me to sleep. I would get, you know, nightmares and just keep waking up. Basically my mind was going. And when I reached rehab, I promise you, if I had stayed out even one more month, it truly would have gone. I would have gone into psychosis. That's where the paranoia starts.
Right.
Do you know?
Right.
Because I watched so many people come in hiding. Actually, I don't know why they always say FBI. We have watched too many movies, by the way.
Not a new PDF or what?
No.
It's FBI.
Yeah. Or they're trying to poison
Hallucinations.
me. Yes, those are the hallucinations. For the first week, the person is sleeping under the bed. They are hiding. I promise that would have been me. I was literally going down that path. And for me, that was the most scary thing. I've always said I can be a paraplegic, in words, as in completely paralyzed, but my mind has to remain intact. You know? So for me, that scared me. Plus, so many things were happening in my life, business-wise, and then with my son. And I realized that life, it was not going to get better. I was the one who had to get stronger. So I remember I went into rehab to learn how to get stronger. You know, I didn't anticipate the depth, how much therapy I would receive. I just wanted to get in to learn, to figure out how to stop drinking, and then to just get stronger so I can come out a real ninja, you know, and handle things better. Because I had failed. I remember I had just come back from my son's school when I made the decision that I had to go in, and it was so horrible, and I had drunk, you know, throughout. And anyway, I could just tell, you know, everything was getting worse and worse. It wasn't going to get better. I was trying so hard to control everything. I was trying so hard to make everything better. And the more I tried, the more I held on to things, the worse it got. So, yeah.
So you just one time just say, you know what? You hit your brother up.
Yeah, I call my brother and I just say, I need to go to rehab. He's like, what do you mean? Are you sure?
And you were prepared. You said in the video, you say you're very prepared. You had sent your dad or your details. Who? Your dad or your brother?
Both
Bank
of them.
Details.
Yes, my details. I had written
You wrote a letter to your son? What was in the letter to your son?
I was literally saying really sorry that I had ruined his life. Because I didn't know. For me, I went in not seeing after. I didn't visualize life after. You know, at that point, I kept saying I chose life because I just knew that I was going away, but I didn't know where I was going. I had never really actively thought of rehab. I had never thought about where I'm going to sleep, how it will be, where this rehab is. No, I really hadn't thought like that. For me, I was just going away. You get, and that's what I mean. Like I was really losing my mind in that way because I was truly going away. And this is, I think that this is how people reach suicide because even that note that I wrote, it was of, I was saying bye. You know, I was saying bye and I was saying sorry. And those are the messages that I was sending, you know. Basically, that's what I was
Like you
saying.
legit saw yourself losing it.
Yeah,
Like
because in my world, I for a long time, like rehab wasn't for me. It's like I go to rehab and then what? Like I felt like it wasn't for me. I wouldn't be able to handle the stigma that comes with that. For me, rehab was what I thought, right? Where people are picked from the trenches, like you're picked from deep down in the ghetto. Like you get what I mean?
Butabika, what we know about Butabika, yes.
Exactly. By the way, right? Uniform,
Mad
what?
guys on the road, what?
But when I tell you like where my mind had reached, I don't know if that was God, but all those other thoughts of what I'll wear, what I will, where I'll sleep, blocked. Like I was not thinking beyond that. And this is where having a very good support, because imagine I just had to make that phone call, you know, and it was sorted.
And then you go into this rehab and it's one of the best things that ever happened to you.
Aye.
You fell in love with this place willingly. Let me tell you, most of the guys that go into rehab come out and it's no different, it's even worse. You just chose to carry your clothes and your things and went into rehab.
And I went in because for me, it wasn't rehab. I had chosen life. I had chosen to fight. That's it. It wasn't rehab. I had chosen to fight.
That's amazing.
That's it. As in, I went there, as in, if they had said every morning, wake up, jump backwards, do somersaults, I would have done that. I had chosen to fight, you know.
That's an amazing way to put it.
Yeah, it wasn't. So I reached there and imagine asking, so what happens?
Right.
So where do I sleep? So I remember the next day saying group sessions, as in we all sit and jazz our shit, you know. I really didn't know, and for me, a control freak,
right,
to have gone into this place not knowing what tomorrow is going to be like.
Right.
Do I carry a book? I remember asking, so is there a curriculum? Everyone was like, no. I was like, so you just sit and wait to be taught. You don't even know what you're going to learn. So I was like, so when do I see a doctor? And I kept saying doctors. I was not saying counselors, psychologists. Me, I wanted to see a doctor because I had gone in for treatment. I don't know. I was not thinking clearly. So that's how clueless I was. It really did. First of all, I rested. It felt like hope. Like for the first time, you know, I had walked towards a solution. I had chosen to fight. It felt like that was the best decision, the only good decision I had made in a long time. Like the peace that engulfed me, I can't explain it. Up to now, when I want to channel that, you know, I keep calling it Botswana because that's what we told Shema. You know, I kept saying I need to channel Botswana. Yeah, he believes I was doing a safari, what did I call it? A safari management course, because we're building a lodge at that point in Botswana. And because I always told him I was going to take him on safari in Botswana. So, so we called it then, and it's Bujuko, Botswana, same. So I have to channel that. Like, I literally have to take myself back into that room, you know, and just remind myself of, because for me, that's where I've never felt that calm.
Wow.
Actually, I had never, ever felt that calm in my life. Completely.
You felt calm in rehab?
Completely.
That's amazing.
Completely. And I found God. It's like my mind became still enough for me to even just read a page of the Bible. Like the way I was reading the Bible, I even had to use the index. I didn't even know where John was, where Matthew, nothing. Isaiah. Which one was in Old Testament, which one was in New.
Right.
You know, it was amazing. Yes. So for me, it worked. And I really consumed the whole experience.
How long were you there for?
And then some. 3 months. So I had to leave 10 days early, and I fought. I really fought. I didn't want to. You know, to finish my 3 months properly, but something changed in Shama's holiday schedule, and the rest of the family wasn't going to be available, and I had to come out and do that. But it was an amazing experience.
So that was a turning point?
That was my turning
From the
point.
first time you took that cat drink in
Yeah.
South Africa to rehab now.
20 years. Those were 20 years.
Wow.
Yeah. My first drink at 20, I went into rehab at 40.
It took you 20 years to wake up.
I went into rehab at 40. My first sober
Shoot.
birthday was when I turned 41 last December.
Shoot.
And it felt
So you were blind for 20
strange.
years.
Yeah, I really was. And so that's why I started doing these videos.
This-
I'm like, it doesn't have to take you 20 years,
Right,
you know?
right.
It really doesn't. You know, people need to, maybe something will resonate through them. So that's why I really like what you're doing.
Thank you.
You know?
Thank you.
But yeah, so that's my story.
And then you're here.
And now I'm here.
Now you finish rehab. Now you're here. You're serving. You're giving back to the people, and
Yeah.
and you're creating this impact that you genuinely love. Because I've had a chat with you off,
Yeah.
and you really love. You feel like this is an act of service,
Yeah.
and it's immensely important to have people like you in our community, because most of us are struggling in silence.
Yeah. It's a very isolating
Especially
disease.
from when you told me, I'm pro boy child. Don't get me
Yeah.
wrong, but now when you gave me the context of a girl child. Especially for you, it's a girl child who is high end. Now,
you just don't
in my
say
understanding,
that.
my perception, I'm giving you my perception.
Yeah.
But then obviously when you explain your story, it makes sense.
Yeah.
Now, as a girl, you're fighting for the girl, I like to believe.
Yeah.
How important is it to fight for the girl child especially? I mean, addiction is
You know,
everyone.
I don't know if I'm fighting for the girl. I'm one of those people who I can only talk about what I know.
Right.
You know, so
But
I
by
can
virtue
resonate
of-
with other women because I'm a woman.
Exactly,
that's it,
exactly.
Right?
And the
when
stigma
I met
comes with
this
that.
chap, right? I remember what you told me. You're like, but it's easy for girls. I remember looking at you and saying,
Right.
what? We had even met about something else. I sat
Right.
down and I was like, let me tell you.
Right.
You know? And you know, imagine when I met you didn't even know that I was doing these videos.
I didn't know.
You know?
Yeah.
But, so, about the girl child, the woman. It's so much harder for us because of all this. You see, first of all, we don't even belong in bars doing all these things. Like, that's not the face of addiction. Is really not a woman. You know, for us, it looks like you just have bad manners. You know, like, gosh, who raised you? You know, it's also, you know, you see, for a woman in addiction, it's scary. You know, with that comes a lot of bad decisions, and this is usually with a lot of promiscuity. It's a lot of this, and you know, men get away with a lot of these things, right? But for a woman, you're looked at in a different way, because some of those things, you know, are quite unforgivable in this society of ours. You get what I mean? We are mothers. You know how we look at women as mothers, as sacred. You know, your mother can do no wrong
Right.
in your eyes.
Right.
You know,
Right.
just by virtue of being that, you should have such a high moral stance. You know, so it's so much harder. And then I gave you that example about in rehab, the females were only maybe 20%. We were so few compared to the guys. So few. And let me tell you something else that was shocking. What was that? Only me and a few others. The biggest percentage of those women, let me just say women, who would come in would be in psychosis. And why I say this is that most families will bring in a female, girl, child, woman, whatever you want to call it, when they've tried everything. They first locked you in the garage because how dare people know that our daughter went to rehab, you know? They will have tried all the pastas. They will have tried herbs, everything. But for a guy, it's so easy to throw him in rehab. You know what I mean? To make that decision, because you just don't, you know what I mean?
Right.
So they most times would come in when they are so far gone. I remember, because I wasn't that far gone, I had to always help so much. Like, I mean, literally bathing someone. Like, they'd come in psychosis. And I think because of my big metron size, like now, yes, a lot of you are looking at me like, then what did you look like before? Yo, I was double this. Anyway, they would, in their psychosis, look at me like I was a big sister, mother. That's what they'd be calling me, you know, and will refuse anyone else to touch them unless it's me.
There's so much stigma around.
So much, you know. And so that's actually the main reason why I started doing this, because I felt like if another family could see that I went in, I didn't die, I even thrived, and I came out okay, and I managed to rebuild my life.
You're manifesting Tuza.
Yes.
Come on.
That maybe they won't wait until like extreme, you know, to take this
It's okay
person
to not
in.
be
But
okay.
I know I'm talking about it from the family, but also another woman who is in the situation that I was in, that you can choose to go away for 3 months. And the most wonderful thing about here Uganda is that somehow we have a lot of help. Even if it's a mom who is just a 1-year-old or 2-year-old, it will be hard. You'll say, no, but what about my child? Leave that child with your auntie, with your best friend. In fact, there was a time I thought, maybe I start that. Maybe I started a daycare and actually remain with these babies so moms can go in.
That would be very interesting, by the way.
Did you get what
like
I mean?
a wellness center of some sort. Yeah.
Yes,
that would be
because
powerful.
many moms can't go. I mean, I know I'm privileged in that
Yeah.
sense. I mean, my
really
whole
had
family
yeah.
has co-parented with
Yeah,
me,
yeah,
you know,
yeah.
so for Shema, there's almost no difference. We're all, you know, my mom is mama,
Yeah,
mommy,
yeah,
sometimes
yeah.
even, you know.
It's amazing you recognize that as well.
Yeah, so, but I know that it's not that easy for others.
Right.
So I don't want to sound like I'm coming from a place of privilege. I say, leave your child. I know that it is hard. But guess what? It is harder if you don't. Because the impact, what you will do to this child by not getting help is way worse. It is way, way worse, you know. So, yeah, that's just one of those reasons.
It's important that you elaborate that, because you might not see the impact of what that does to your child then.
Yeah,
You will see it when the child grows.
yeah.
Right? And we don't understand these things, especially in these communities. We're not really, you know, pro mental health and wellness
Yeah.
and all these things. So we tend to think that, what do you mean?
Yeah.
Right? Until the child becomes very dysfunctional
Yeah.
when they become of age. And yet their upbringing contributed to that.
Yeah,
So
I really
I
want
like
to
that you stress
reduce,
that.
like remove the stigma. Of course, we can't remove. You can only reduce, right?
One at a
So,
time.
for example, husbands, if your wife is going through this, remember this can happen to anyone. You know, give her those 3 months. Let her go in and be supportive. You know, look after the children for those 3 months. Let her go for help. And by the way, not everyone has to go to rehab. Some people, maybe they're not too far gone. You can just go for counseling. There's so many of these centers, right, that have outpatient
Right.
counseling.
Right.
You can just go straight into a program. You know, I go for weekly meetings. I go for about 3 to 4 meetings a week. You know, where we have
I see
we
you posting
welcome
on your
people.
status all the time. You're with
Where
that.
we welcome people into the fold, and so there's always a newcomer in the room, you know, and we're always there to support. So some people don't have to. Besides, it's also expensive. The
Yeah.
one I went to, I paid. It was 3.5 million a month. Now, not that means
My
3
guy.
months. 3 months was 10 point what? My math is not very good. But
Yes.
can you imagine that? Now, because I was in a self-contained room, but there are other rooms. There are some rooms with 4 beds, other rooms with 2 beds, but nothing is less than 2 million a month.
That's
For the
quite- that's
particular
quite-
one
yeah.
I went to, I know that there are cheaper ones, but and then there's Butavika that's free. In general, there are options.
Yeah.
But I'm you know.
But the private is a bit quite costly. Yeah.
Yes, and so it's not easy, but
So your
it's, for
encouragement
me, it's
is,
worth
is
it.
to, I think
Just
first
seek
and
help.
foremost, you have to identify that you need help.
Yes.
You have to radically accept. I like you talk
Yes,
about that.
that you have a problem.
Thank you.
And
How
then
important is
I
that?
just-
How important is radically accepting
Oh my
that I have
God.
a problem?
Acceptance is the first thing. You cannot start to heal before you have accepted. And I mean fully accepted.
Right.
There are some people who think they've accepted, but they still have a certain level of denial. You can't be there saying, I've accepted I'm an alcoholic, and then, but I only drink on Friday. Or
Or I know how to moderate.
no. That means you're still in denial about what alcoholism is. You have to have really accepted that, right? And sometimes that's why I'm doing what I'm doing, so someone can maybe recognize that in themselves. You know, I went to rehab without ever having Googled the word alcoholism. I swear, nothing. I'd never even said the word. But
Interesting.
to show that I have radically, like I have accepted that I am. I mean, I'm sitting here. I do shows. I show every week, every other week. That starts with me saying, "Hi, my name is Laura, and I'm an alcoholic." I want to be that person who, even sitting at a table at a wedding, and someone passes me either a glass of wine and I say, "No, I'm alcoholic. I can't drink." I want to be able to casually say the way someone says, "I'm diabetic. I don't take sugar." So I look at it like, your body can handle alcohol, mine can't. You know?
And I'm aware.
I'm not saying don't drink. I don't stop anyone from drinking.
Yeah.
You do your thing. Me, my body jumped. I'm literally allergic to it. And now I have really understood that in such intricate detail. I understand how my mind works. I even understand why it was such a mind-altering substance for me. Like why even from that first sip, it was not the same. Me, I went from 0 to 100. And if you talk to most addicts, their experience when they first consumed is usually very different from one who is not an addict. Yeah.
And obviously people who have high tolerance and low tolerance as well. So here you are.
Yep.
And I like the fact that you've talked about very key points. To me, what has stood out is radical acceptance from your journey.
Yeah.
Because most of us you have to admit that you're not okay.
Yeah.
Because most of us play the victim so easily.
Of course. Because I lost someone, I lost my job. In this camp of life, you're looking for excuses. You can't fail. I lost money.
The roads.
Some deal did what? To the roads, government, anything.
Right?
Yeah.
And yet you managed to bypass all that, and you have now become a voice.
Yeah.
And it's a huge role in our society today. You're one of the few ladies that I know. I mean, when I came to have a chat with you, I didn't even have that in mind.
Nothing.
And then when you started to tell me your story, and I went on YouTube and checked the whole journey, I was like, what?
Yeah.
Because in my mind, it couldn't even register that you went through that based on perception.
And I remember another thing that you said that shocked me. You're like, rehab doesn't work, and you seemed really sure about it.
Because of
and yet it worked for me. But that's why I keep saying, me, I can only tell my story. It worked for me, and maybe because of how I had really accepted I had a problem.
Thank you.
Do you get? So therapy was not forced on me. I literally went, and I even remember my first counseling session when I was in rehab. It was like, so what do I do? What do you need? Where do we start?
Right.
I fully embraced everything.
It's important to mention that.
Yeah.
To walk in unwilling, the success rate is...
It's very low.
To walk in willingly?
But at the same time, wonder. You know the way you say it, there are some families that have no choice.
Exactly.
Do you get? Yeah. If you're literally, you're self-destructive, like you're either going to kill someone or kill yourself, either in a road accident or whatever. Like your family is seeing you go down.
Right.
Even you yourself.
That's true.
You will, I watched people I used to call it kidnapped, right? Most people come in zonked. Like you've either been, you've gone for like a counseling session, but then the family knows you're not returning. You're going to get into a car and head to rehab without knowing where you're going, And of course they wake up and they're angry, and then they have to go through the best ones, right? The best case scenario is, even if you take your loved one in by force, but the prayer would be that they go through the grief, the stages of grief, which are, it starts with denial, then the anger, then the negotiating, and then the depression, and then acceptance. So the denial coming, I just had a bad night, they're exaggerating, I was just angry with Zay, that's why I slapped him. What? But they're this, you guys don't understand. You know how my boss treated me? Oh my God, right? This person doesn't understand why they were brought. Then after that, all the beefing, they realize, these guys, how could they do that? They brought me here, now they're angry, they're breaking things, they're abusing the counselors, but these guys have seen it all, right? Then they start negotiating. Okay, fine. Does it have to be 3 months? Okay, fine. Maybe I behaved really badly. I promise I'm going to get out. I won't be doing this. I won't be doing that. They start negotiating, bargaining, all that. Then the depression of when it really sinks in. This is usually when they've had some counseling or they've sat through some of the sessions and really they've started to see that, you know what, maybe I do have a problem, or shit, I've really hurt my family, or whatever it is, that depression,
sinks in.
That oh shit moment really hits. And then acceptance. Then that's when they will go for that therapy session and say, okay, fine, what do I do? Now, some, unfortunately, and it's a huge percentage, will remain on the anger stage, will remain on the bargaining stage. Fine, let me come out. I swear, I won't do RG, I'll do only beer. Fine, I won't beat up my wife, we will go for counseling, And sometimes the counselors can see that this is not the
BS.
time
Yeah.
that it's going to happen.
Yeah.
Then unfortunately, some people have to go back in. Like, I mean, there was quite a number of people who were there for the third time. You know, and I remember it being very shocking when someone would just casually ask me, "So is this your first time?" Because in my mind, what? I'm never doing this again. Like, what do you mean? Like, is this my first time? And the way you ask as if, you know, like it's so normal. And I know, unfortunately, for the younger ones, it really is. Because a 20-year-old, 22, 23, they still feel like they still have a little life. Like, it's easier for someone my age to know that, also to say, really, I've blasted enough, even if I stop now. But then FOMO can kill. Like, imagine a guy on campus, a chick on campus, just still has all the partying.
The peer pressure.
The peer pressure.
How can you stay in the hostel when everyone is out?
Yeah,
right?
And they can see that. They can see that this is not the moment.
Yeah.
This is not the transformation.
And yet, that's why it begins, because it becomes an answer to the void. Because a lot of this has a lot to do with the void.
Yeah.
There's a gaping void. So when you try it then in your 20s, like you tried, it became an answer, and it just sort of slowly started to. Because that's how it begins, no? It ain't magically just. It becomes an answer to everything. What piece of advice, as we close, would you give to that 20-year-old? What would you advise the 20-year-old version of you right now? The one in South Africa right now, before she touches that country. What would you tell her?
Before, oh my God. That you are enough. That you are okay the way you are. That you don't need external validation. You know, I just wish I believed in myself more. You know, I just really wish I did. I don't know. That's just what it is. For that 20-year-old still out there, just keep checking your habits. You know, we cannot, you know, right now, with everything on the internet these days, it's going to reach a point where we can't be Saturdays anymore. You have to know you have a problem. You know, there's so many of us speaking out now that you can't keep faking ignorance. You know, so just keep checking your habits. And for families, choose love. The only, truly, apart from everything I've said, I don't think I would have reached rehab in one piece if it hadn't been for my family's unconditional love. It was love. They did not give up on me. In fact, I feel like the more my mother loved so hard, she was like, what should it let me? Because for her, it was, okay, what's in my control? What's in my control is to love her. You get, let me love her. Let her always know that she has a family, that we love her no matter what. To some people, it looked like, to some people, it can look like enabling. It can look like you're not being hard enough on, you know, on this addict. But I don't think, because I've seen it work with me, you know. One of the things that really shocked me in rehab is just listening to people's stories of, you know, by the time I got here, I had last seen my family 6 months ago. I'm like, where were you? I was in the ghetto, like I had gotten lost. Like now I've heard so many of those stories. So many of them wonder. For me, my life, one day, I cannot go missing for one day. To be a national crisis. I cannot, you know. But I don't blame families. I know how hard it can be. But hard. I'm just saying, hang in there. Don't give up. And now there's so much help. Like, at least as families, even before your person goes in, you yourself can go in for counseling. Go and learn what not to say, what to do, how to help. Some people, we want to help, but we're helping in the wrong way. We just end up becoming enablers. You know, as a mom, you think that you're helping, but you're there telling him how he's embarrassing you and doing this. You're making him feel worse.
Yeah, most of the parents also contribute to
yes, our families are our biggest triggers.
Exactly.
The biggest triggers. And then home stops being a safe space, and that's why they disappear into the ghetto.
Thank you.
You know, so even if you cannot change or you cannot force this person into rehab, you change yourself. It starts with you.
Powerful.
It starts with you.
Thank you for saying that.
Seek help.
Yeah, because that's the answers to many people's why the crisis they're in.
Yeah.
Those are the contributors to that.
Yeah.
Imagine your home not being safe enough for you to be in. So you have to be in the ghetto.
Yeah, your
right?
closest people not being safe enough for you to go to
Exactly.
or to be around.
Exactly.
You know, you're there thinking you're helping, but you're making this person drink even more, you know, or feel more ashamed of themselves. And for an addict, shame is the worst thing. It's one of the first things. I remember with my counseling, one of the first things they did was make me write all the things I was ashamed of. Allah, it was a whole book. And they said do from the very beginning, from S1. Okay, they even made me go further back. And it was a lot. I remember I was so heavy, you know, but they made me write all that and gave me all the tools to slowly forgive myself for each of those things or just let them go. Because for as long as and it's because I did that therapy properly that I'm able to sit here. I mean, why aren't I ashamed? Why aren't I afraid that there are even people who won't give me business because I'm an alcoholic? Or why don't I say, now I am never ever going to be vibed. Like there's no guy that's ever going to want to be with me because I'm an alcoholic. Yeah, that risk is there. But the risk of me relapsing or drinking again because I'm harboring all this is far greater. I'd rather be single for life. I am okay with my life the way it is now. You get what I mean?
Right.
So,
right now, you legit love yourself. Would you say that you love yourself?
I love myself more than I have ever loved myself. I don't know if it's more every day. You know, it's growing. I'm discovering new ways.
You're excited about waking up in the morning and stepping
Yes.
out and being of service, and
Yes.
things are looking good
Yeah.
because they look good on the inside. I like to emphasize what it means on the inside.
Yes, and it has to start with you.
Yeah.
I'm able to do videos like this or to help to work in the rehabs.
Right.
Basically, all the things that I'm doing because I am first pouring into myself.
Come on.
Do you get like
Yeah.
if I wasn't doing that, I
Yeah.
wouldn't be able to. Like earlier, you know, when we spoke about someone that you want to talk to,
Right.
and I said just make sure that this person loves themselves enough first, and that they have made peace with who they are,
Right.
and they're not afraid to lose whatever they have to lose just by coming and sit with you and said, my name is so and so, and I'm an alcoholic.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
You have to have done the work on yourself. And I'm doing the work on myself every
Never
single
ends.
day.
We all do.
For my life, you see, I keep saying, like, for other people, routine, self-love, self-care, all those
All that,
things
yeah.
are very nice to do. For me, it's compulsory. The way a diabetic
deliberate.
has to take their medicines or the way I have to do it to stay sober.
So you have a detailed way you go about your day.
Yes, I have to make sure I've planned my things. If there's any medication I take, I have to do that. I have to make sure.
And you take meds for that as well.
No. But I'm saying I have
be
to
like,
make sure that
meds
I'm
for
well.
alcoholism.
So whatever supplements I have to
Okay,
take,
right,
I will
right,
take
right.
them.
Yeah.
I have to work out. I have to eat well. I have to do all these things because I have to be physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually well. I have
But
to.
now for that one
make
who's trying to
sure.
break free and they don't have dimes, don't have money. How do you go about that recovery? Because that detailed is a budget.
You first tell me which healthy food you can't eat in
That
Uganda.
detail is a budget.
You first tell me you can also walk non-stop in front of your house.
Okay.
You can do a part together many times.
Okay.
Spiritual, you can pray, you can meditate from
That's
where
true.
you are.
That's true.
What else?
Yeah, fair enough. So I was just giving you an
And that's why I
excuse.
said you don't have to go to
Yeah.
rehab. There are people like us. You can go to these meetings. There's so many.
Right.
There's a lot of free counseling. There's a lot of that. These days, by the way, there's an answer for everything.
Right.
Yeah, there is. And with what I'm doing, I want to reach a stage where, I don't know, I haven't figured it out yet, but I want to be able to even sponsor people to go to rehab after they've done, all that. Like there'll be a whole mechanism to that because I know that there are people who need to get help and they can't. But yep.
Yeah, thank you so much. This
Have
is
I
now,
answered all your
you have answered this question. You actually answered. Obviously, this will probably be like a part one that will sort of lead into something else
Yes.
because there's a crisis going on
Yes.
among the youth, the young adults. We're the youngest country in the world. You can imagine we're the most diverse country in the world. So you can imagine what's currently happening. There's
Yeah.
a big issue brewing when we're fearful of what might unpack in the next few years. Suicidal ideation and all these things spiraling. And so I feel like this is just the beginning of this conversation. I like what you've answered my question as it relates to perception.
Yeah.
You know, what I thought of you and thinking that you had it all figured out, and then here you are and you've gone through all these things that are mind blowing, that could have taken you out,
Yeah.
right? Because it has a lot to do with the mind. We forget that the rich, the poor, everyone has a mind,
Yes.
and it can be a prison, right?
Yep.
And it's
And addiction really isn't. It doesn't discriminate.
It doesn't discriminate.
It can happen to anyone. I mean, even whether you look at the news or all these celebs or whatnot,
it's usually the celebs.
anyone.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. So,
Right?
I
So-
commend you for this, for creating a home of tranquility and peace and calmness, but comes from within fundamentally. It's not
Yes.
the building; it comes from within.
Yep.
You know, something that you've worked on tirelessly.
I just
So-
had to create a space to be
Yeah.
able to do a lot of these things that I want to do.
And thank you so much for serving. I noticed you have quite a bit. There's places you go to on a
Yeah.
Monday. You drive hours on end
Yes.
to go and give back to the
Yeah.
community. And
And those are my best days.
yeah, and you see those are your best days. You're giving back to people. And thank you so much for that. I thank you for, sitting here to
Thanks
share
for
your
coming
story.
to speak to me.
You know, I like to have conversations that will last a lifetime.
Yeah.
And I believe this is one of those ones. I commend
And
you
none
for
of
that.
this is fact.
Yeah.
Like, this is my truth.
This is
as
your truth.
I
It's
know it.
vulnerable as it
Do you
is.
get?
Yeah.
Yes, and this is my story. You know,
Yeah.
maybe what worked for me might not work for someone else,
Right.
but it
There
is
we go.
my
No,
truth.
It's definitely,
It
for
is
me,
my truth.
it's spoken to me. I'll say
Yeah.
that much. We don't know who else it will speak to, but it's spoken to me.
Yeah.
So thank you so much. I don't know if you have any parting shots, just a little one, too, you know what I mean? I have to sort of, end it with style. You get
Yeah.
me? So if you could just
Just-
don't mind looking into the camera, I don't know what camera, but
I still
just
don't
say
know.
a little 1, 2 to the people.
Yeah. Just educate yourself, listen, let's not be satagadis, and choose love. Whatever you do it with love. Less judgment, more compassion. And you can hold space for two realities. You may not agree with something, but then it doesn't mean that you judge someone. You can still just be accepting of them. I don't know. Just choose love. That's it. Choose love.
Right.